This is the golf shrine in the man cave, and this is just a few of the hundreds of books that I've read about golf and photography over the years. I had a public library card, and when I lived in Northern Virginia in Prince William County, I read every golf book there was in the county library system. The history of golf, golf course design, and biographies of great golfers. I just most recently read The American Triumvirate, which was the story of Hogan, Snead, and Nelson during their pro careers. In the stack there, you have on the bottom, Play Better Golf by Arnold Palmer, and there's Tom Watson's book in there. I don't have my copy of Golf My Way because I gave it to a golf pro that I met and played with in the 80s. An interesting story. I met him at a municipal course. He was a skinny black dude, and I asked him what he did for a living. He said that he was a pool boy. He cleaned swimming pools. Well, it turned out that when he was in the Ivory Coast, where he was from, he was a golf pro. And he was self-taught by watching videos by Jack Nicklaus. And it was his idol. He learned to play golf watching old VHS tapes of golf tournaments that Nicklaus has played. Well, the backstory was that he had a Japanese guy who was his student, and his patron went back to Japan. His game fell apart, so he paid for this guy to go from the Ivory Coast to live in Tokyo for a year just to be his private coach, and the reward was a Mizuno staff bag, and the guy was an incredible golfer. But I played with him for a summer, so he was my mentor. I was very blessed to have an amazing career. I got into the Foreign Service when I was 30 years old, and it was like a golden ticket into retirement. I was a reproduction specialist. I had been a photo technician on National Geographic and production manager at a commercial web offset printing plant when USI hired me. And that's a meritorious award and medal I got. The poster in the background is from a seminar that I did back in the 80s to teach other people photo reproduction. When I retired after 25 years in the Foreign Service, I got this nice award from the Secretary of State. It was Condoleezza Rice at the time. And I also got this award from the Assistant Secretary that I work for. I was working for the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Administration as a reinvention specialist, and I had reinvented the entire domestic printing operation at the State Department with databases that I created. That was one of my sidelines. And when you retire, they give you a nice flag that has flown over the State Department to display. So I'm very proud to have served my country for 25 years. After the 25 years in the Foreign Service, I retired in 2007 at age 55. They rehired me for another 3 years as a reemployed annuitant. And that's when I started playing golf at a golf course called Broad Run Golf in Northern Virginia near the Manassas Airport. It started raining, so I had to retreat to the man cave. I built this house in 2020. And the interesting experience was that my builder was a former golf pro named Johnny Schiano. He had been on the mini tours. He was a student of Ben Doyle in Carmel, California, who was one of the first instructors to adopt Homer Kelly's golf machine. Very, very quirky guy. His golf videos are on YouTube and are very interesting. Well, Johnny and I hit it off like brothers because we both have the same approach, the same analytical approach to golf. Well, what happened is his father was in the contracting business and he had grown up in construction, but his father got hurt, so Johnny quit the pro tour. He was on the long drive tour with Jamie Sadowski, But he quit and came down here to North Carolina, St. James, and became a golf pro at the clubs here run by Troon. There's 4 golf courses here. And so he was golf pro, and then he decided, well, let me try building some spec houses. And now he's one of the most successful home builders in the country. So he and I collaborated, and I had been designing this house for 15 years in my head because I had purchased the lot in 2005. Now, what got me interested in golf again was in 2003, I had come back from my last foreign assignment in the Philippines in the Foreign Service and was nearing retirement. So the wife and I decided, well, let's get another house and let's buy a house and we can flip it and make some money. And we're looking at houses all over Northern Virginia, and I find this one in Manassas, Virginia, and I look in the backyard and there's an artificial golf green, a putting green. So it had just come on the market, so we offered list price, and so I now have a house that has a golf course in the back. And one of the first YouTube videos on my channel now is me and the dog in the front yard with me hitting golf balls. Well, yeah, I spent hours in the backyard on this artificial green, and I started going to thrift stores and buying wedges and putters, so when I had house guests that came over, they could chip and putt. So that got me interested in golf, and then I started hitting foam balls in the yard for a while, and I really didn't want to spend a lot of money on golf until I got a halfway decent swing. So I just screwed around in the yard with foam balls for a while. And it wasn't until I retired in 2007 and the State Department hired me back to manage the same job I was doing, managing printing for the State Department, that I started playing golf at a local 9-hole executive course called Broad Run Golf. So I'm working 2 days a week part-time, and then after work I would get off early and I would come and play golf. And after I'd been playing there for about a month, one of these starters said, hey, one of our starters just left. You seem to be here all the time. Do you want a job? So I ended up working in the pro shop for minimum wage, and that got, I didn't like that at all. So when an opening as a starter showed up, that's how I became a starter, sitting on the first tee, watching people slice and hook their balls into the woods. And that's when I realized that I had a balance problem the same as they did. It wasn't until I was able to sit back and look at them from an external point of view, like a golf pro. You look at Butch Harmon and all these golf pros, they stand behind their players and all they do is stand there and with their arms crossed and they'll say this and that. Well, what they're doing is watching their players balance, because that's the biggest fault in golf is falling off balance. And once I realized that I was falling off balance, I was being pulled on my nose in the downswing, that was the revelation that put me on this path of trying to understand the biomechanics of the golf swing. And I started reading books, every book that I could get my hands on. I went to the public library, got a public library card, and I literally read every book in the public library system on golf. Including biographies, history of the game, biographies of course designers, every aspect of golf, including the history of the development of the clubs. And I would go to the mall. This was before we had cell phones. And when I got dragged to the shopping mall with the wife, what I would do is I would head for Borders Bookstore to the bargain rack, and if there was a golf book in the bargain rack, I would buy it. And that is how I found some really, really good golf books, really cheap. And I would just sit there, and in the course of her shopping trip, by the time she finished her shopping trip, I would usually be finished with the book. So I had a collection of probably, 50 books that I had purchased that way, that I gave away a lot of them, donated them back to thrift stores before I moved here. But I kept about, about a dozen of my favorites. My first ones were Golf My Way with Jack Nicklaus, Up and Down in 40 Yards or Less with Tom Watson, and How I Play Golf with Arnold Palmer, which I've mentioned in my previous videos.